Every morning, before the world demands your attention, before noise, pressure, and expectation rush in, there is a quiet moment that belongs only to you. In that moment, the words you tell yourself matter more than anything you will hear all day. They shape your posture, your discipline, your decisions, and your direction. If you begin the day unconsciously, the world will decide who you are. If you begin it deliberately, you decide who you become. The first thing to tell yourself is that you are responsible for your mind, your actions, and your life. No one else will think for you. No one else will choose for you. No one else will carry the consequences of your decisions. Responsibility is not heavy when accepted. It is heavy only when avoided. The moment you stop blaming circumstances, people, or the past, you reclaim your power. Responsibility is not punishment, it is freedom, because what you own is what you can change. Tell yourself that discipline today creates freedom tomorrow. Comfort feels good now, but it weakens you later. Discipline feels uncomfortable now, but it strengthens you for life. Every small disciplined act is a step away from dependence and a step towards self-mastery. When you choose structure, consistency, and effort today, you create options for your future self. Freedom is not doing whatever you want. Freedom is having the strength to choose what matters. Remind yourself that discomfort is not your enemy, it is your teacher. Growth never arrives wrapped in comfort. It arrives as resistance, strain, doubt, and uncertainty. When you feel uncomfortable, it means you are at the edge of who you have been. Running from that feeling keeps you small. Staying with it expands your capacity. Discomfort teaches patience, resilience, and humility. It shows you where you need to grow and proves that you are capable of more than you think. Tell yourself that you do not chase motivation. You build consistency. Motivation is unreliable. It depends on mood, energy, and circumstance. Consistency depends on commitment. Some days you will feel inspired. Most days you will not, and that must not matter. Progress is built by showing up even when the work feels ordinary. Consistency turns effort into habit, habit into identity, and identity into destiny. Remind yourself that you control what you can: your breath, your focus, and your effort. You cannot control outcomes, opinions, or events, but you can control how you respond. When pressure rises, return to your breath. When distraction appears, return your focus. When doubt whispers, return to effort. Mastering these three keeps you grounded in chaos. Control over yourself is greater than control over the world. Finally, tell yourself that you choose progress over perfection every single day. Perfection delays action and feeds fear. Progress allows movement, learning, and growth. You do not need to be flawless to move forward. You need to be committed. Small steps taken daily outperform perfect plans never started. Mistakes are not setbacks, they are feedback. Each day you move forward, no matter how imperfectly, you honor your potential. When you speak these truths to yourself every morning, you train your mind before the world tries to train it for you. You stand with clarity instead of confusion, discipline instead of distraction, and purpose instead of hesitation. Over time, these words stop being something you say and start becoming something you live. I am responsible for my mind, my actions, and my life. This is not a motivational phrase meant to make me feel good for a moment. It is a truth that demands discipline, honesty, and courage. Responsibility begins in the mind, because every action is born there. If I allow my thoughts to be chaotic, negative, or uncontrolled, my life will reflect that disorder. No one else can think for me, and no one else can decide what I focus on. The quality of my thoughts determines the quality of my decisions, and my decisions shape my direction. When I take responsibility for my mind, I stop blaming circumstances for how I feel and start observing my thoughts with awareness. I learn that I am not my thoughts, but I am the one who chooses which thoughts to feed and which to let go. Taking responsibility for my mind means training it, just like the body. A weak mind seeks comfort, distraction, and excuses. A trained mind seeks clarity, discipline, and truth. My mind will naturally avoid effort and discomfort if left untrained, so it is my duty to guide it. I choose what information I consume, what habits I reinforce, and what beliefs I allow to define me. When fear appears, I acknowledge it without letting it control me. When doubt arises, I examine it instead of surrendering to it. I understand that my inner dialogue is powerful, and if I speak to myself with weakness, my actions will follow that weakness. Responsibility means replacing self-pity with self-respect. I am responsible for my actions, which means I do not hide behind intention while ignoring impact. What I do matters more than what I say I will do. Every action is a reflection of my inner state, and every repeated action becomes a habit. Habits, over time, become character. I cannot claim to want growth while choosing comfort in my daily behavior. If my actions are inconsistent, my results will be inconsistent. Responsibility demands that I act in alignment with my values, even when it is inconvenient, even when no one is watching, even when the reward is delayed. Blaming others for my actions is a refusal to grow. Circumstances may influence me, but they do not control me. Between stimulus and response, there is a choice, and that choice belongs to me. I may not choose what happens, but I always choose how I respond. When I react without awareness, I surrender my power. When I respond with intention, I reclaim it. Responsibility means owning my mistakes without excuses and learning from them without self-hatred. Mistakes are not proof of failure, they are proof of effort. Avoiding responsibility only guarantees repetition of the same patterns. Being responsible for my actions also means accepting discipline as a form of self-respect. Discipline is not punishment, it is structure. It is choosing long-term growth over short-term relief. When I wake up early, train my body, focus on my work, and follow through on commitments, I am voting for the person I want to become. Each disciplined action strengthens my identity. Each avoided responsibility weakens it. I understand that no one is coming to save me from the consequences of my choices. What I repeatedly do today will define my tomorrow. I am responsible for my life, which means I accept that the direction of my life is the result of accumulated choices. This truth can feel heavy, but it is also liberating. If my life is my responsibility, then change is possible. I am not trapped by my past unless I continue to make the same choices in the present. Responsibility removes the illusion that someone else will fix what I avoid. It forces me to confront reality instead of escaping into blame, distraction, or fantasy. Taking responsibility for my life means setting boundaries, not just with others but with myself. It means saying no to habits, relationships, and behaviors that weaken me. It means choosing environments that support growth rather than comfort. I understand that my time is limited, and wasting it is a form of self-betrayal. Every hour I spend matters, whether I use it consciously or unconsciously. Responsibility requires awareness of how I spend my energy, not just my time. I accept that life will include pain, struggle, and uncertainty. Responsibility does not mean controlling everything, it means facing everything. When challenges arise, I do not ask why this is happening to me, I ask what this is teaching me. I do not wait for perfect conditions to act, because perfect conditions do not exist. Progress is made through imperfect action taken consistently. Responsibility means staying committed even when motivation fades and results are slow. Being responsible for my life also means accepting solitude at times. Growth often requires walking a path others do not understand. When I stop seeking validation and start seeking alignment, I become less dependent on external approval. Responsibility teaches me to stand firm in my values without needing permission. I learn to trust myself because I keep promises to myself. Self-trust is built through action, not intention. I understand that no one owes me success, happiness, or fulfillment. These are earned through effort, patience, and self-mastery. Responsibility removes entitlement and replaces it with purpose. I do not measure my life by comparison with others, because their path is not mine. I measure my life by how honestly I live, how consistently I act, and how courageously I face reality. Responsibility is a daily practice, not a one-time decision. Each day, I choose again to own my mind, my actions, and my life. Discipline today creates freedom tomorrow. This truth goes against what the mind naturally seeks, because the mind prefers comfort, ease, and immediate pleasure. Discipline feels restrictive in the moment, but its purpose is not to limit life, it is to shape it. When I choose discipline today, I am not depriving myself, I am investing in a future where I am no longer controlled by impulses, weaknesses, or circumstances. Freedom is not the absence of structure, it is the result of structure mastered over time. Discipline begins with small, often unnoticed choices. Waking up when the alarm rings instead of negotiating with it. completing a task fully instead of leaving it half done, choosing effort over excuses when no one is watching. These moments may seem insignificant, but they accumulate. Each disciplined action strengthens my ability to act intentionally rather than react emotionally. Over time, this creates a sense of inner order, and inner order is the foundation of freedom. Without discipline, life becomes reactive. I chase what feels good and avoid what feels difficult, and in doing so, I surrender control to external forces. My mood dictates my behavior, my cravings dictate my decisions, and my circumstances dictate my direction. This is not freedom, it is dependence. Discipline reverses this relationship. It teaches me to act according to principles rather than feelings. When I can do what needs to be done regardless of how I feel, I am no longer a prisoner of my emotions. Discipline trains the mind to endure discomfort without seeking escape. Growth requires friction. Muscles grow through resistance, and character grows the same way. When I choose disciplined effort, I am teaching myself that discomfort is temporary, but the benefits of consistency are lasting. The ability to stay focused when things become difficult is what separates those who feel free from those who feel trapped by their own limitations. Freedom tomorrow is built through habits formed today. Habits remove the need for constant decision-making. When I discipline myself to follow a routine, I reduce mental clutter and conserve energy for what truly matters. I no longer waste time debating whether to act. Action becomes automatic. This creates space for creativity, clarity, and growth. The paradox is that structure creates space, and discipline creates flexibility. Discipline also protects me from future regret. Every avoided responsibility becomes a debt that must be paid later, often with interest. Neglected health leads to physical limitations. Ignored skills lead to missed opportunities. Avoided conversations lead to unresolved conflict. Discipline addresses problems early when they are manageable, rather than allowing them to grow into obstacles that restrict freedom. Facing difficulty today prevents suffering tomorrow. True freedom is the ability to choose long-term well-being over short-term pleasure. Without discipline, choices are dictated by impulse. With discipline, choices are guided by intention. I gain the freedom to say no to what weakens me and yes to what strengthens me. This ability is not given, it is earned through repeated acts of self-control. Each time I resist distraction and commit to focused effort, I expand my capacity for freedom. Discipline creates self-respect. When I keep promises to myself, I build trust within. This trust becomes confidence, not based on words or appearances, but on lived experience. I know I can rely on myself because I have proven it through action. This inner stability allows me to move through life with less fear and hesitation. I am not dependent on motivation or external validation to act. I act because it aligns with who I am becoming. Freedom tomorrow also means having options. Discipline builds skills, strength, and resilience which create opportunities. When my body is trained, I am free to move, work, and endure. When my mind is trained, I am free to focus, learn, and adapt. When my finances are disciplined, I am free from constant stress and reactive decision-making. Discipline expands my choices rather than limiting them. Avoiding discipline may feel like freedom in the moment, but it leads to restriction. Laziness creates weakness, weakness creates dependence, and dependence removes choice. Over time, undisciplined living narrows life. Energy decreases, confidence fades, and opportunities disappear. Discipline, though demanding at first, gradually removes limitations. What once felt difficult becomes natural. What once required effort becomes part of identity. Discipline is not about perfection. It is about direction. It is showing up even when conditions are not ideal. It is correcting mistakes without abandoning the path. Consistency matters more than intensity. Small disciplined actions performed daily outweigh occasional bursts of motivation. This steady effort compounds, creating results that seem effortless to others, but are built on unseen commitment. Freedom tomorrow is the ability to live without constant inner conflict. When discipline is absent, the mind is divided between what it wants now and what it knows it should do. This inner struggle drains energy. Discipline aligns desire with purpose. Over time, the mind learns to find satisfaction in effort, not just reward. The struggle decreases, and clarity increases. Discipline teaches patience. Results do not appear immediately, and that is intentional. Waiting strengthens resolve. Delayed gratification sharpens focus. The ability to work without immediate reward is a form of freedom because it frees me from dependency on instant feedback. I continue moving forward regardless of recognition or reassurance. Discipline today creates freedom tomorrow because it builds the internal strength required to handle responsibility. Freedom without strength leads to chaos. Strength without freedom leads to rigidity. Discipline balances both. It creates a stable foundation that allows flexibility without collapse. I am not free because life is easy. I am free because I am capable. Choosing discipline today is choosing the person I will become. Every disciplined action is a message to the future version of myself that I cared enough to prepare. I may not feel the freedom immediately, but it is being built quietly, steadily, through effort, repetition, and commitment. Each day of discipline removes one more limitation, one more excuse, one more weakness, and replaces it with capacity, confidence, and choice. Discomfort is not my enemy, it is my teacher. The mind is conditioned to avoid pain, uncertainty, and difficulty, yet everything that strengthens me exists beyond that avoidance. Discomfort appears whenever growth is required, not to harm me, but to signal that I am stepping beyond what is familiar. If I treat discomfort as an enemy, I retreat, and my world remains small. If I treat it as a teacher, I listen, adapt, and expand. The presence of discomfort means I am in a place where learning is possible. Discomfort exposes weakness without judgment. It reveals where my body lacks strength, where my mind lacks discipline, and where my character lacks resilience. Comfort hides these truths by numbing awareness. When life is easy, I am not required to examine myself honestly. Discomfort removes illusion. It strips away excuses and forces confrontation with reality. This confrontation is not pleasant, but it is necessary. Without it, improvement becomes imaginary rather than real. Every skill I respect was built through discomfort. Physical strength comes from muscles under strain. Mental clarity comes from sustained focus despite distraction. Emotional stability comes from facing fear rather than escaping it. Discomfort is the common currency of all development. The body resists effort. The mind resists uncertainty. Yet adaptation occurs only when resistance is met with persistence. The moment I stop avoiding discomfort, I begin to cooperate with the process of growth. Discomfort teaches patience. Progress rarely moves at the pace the ego desires. When results are slow, frustration arises. This frustration is a lesson in endurance. It trains me to continue without immediate reward, to trust process over emotion. If I quit when discomfort appears, I remain dependent on motivation. If I stay, I become disciplined. Patience is not passive waiting, it is active persistence in the presence of difficulty. Fear often disguises itself as discomfort. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of not being enough. These fears surface when I attempt something meaningful. If I interpret fear as a sign to stop, I allow it to dictate my limits. If I observe it without retreating, fear loses authority. Discomfort teaches me that fear does not disappear through avoidance, but through exposure. Each time I move forward despite fear, its power diminishes. Discomfort also teaches humility. It reminds me that mastery is not immediate and that competence is earned. Struggle places me back into the role of a student. This position requires openness, patience, and respect for the process. When I accept discomfort, I accept that learning is ongoing. Arrogance fades when effort is required. In its place, quiet confidence grows, grounded in experience rather than assumption. The mind often seeks meaning in comfort, but comfort does not educate. Discomfort provides feedback. It tells me when my technique is flawed, when my approach is inefficient, when my mindset is limited. Instead of numbing this feedback, I can study it. Pain, fatigue, and frustration all contain information. When I listen carefully, I refine my methods and improve my performance. Ignoring discomfort delays correction and prolongs stagnation. Discomfort strengthens focus. When conditions are difficult, attention becomes sharper. Distractions lose appeal because effort demands presence. This presence is training. The ability to remain engaged under pressure is a skill that extends beyond the moment of discomfort. It carries into work, relationships, and decision-making. Through discomfort, I learn to stay centered when external conditions are unstable. Growth through discomfort also develops resilience. Resilience is not toughness without feeling. It is the ability to feel fully without breaking. Each time I endure discomfort without collapsing into avoidance or negativity, I expand my capacity to handle stress. This capacity becomes a quiet form of confidence. I no longer fear challenge because I trust my ability to remain steady within it. Discomfort challenges identity. When I am uncomfortable, the story I tell myself about who I am is tested. Am I someone who retreats at resistance or someone who remains present? Identity is shaped not by intention but by response. Each time I choose to stay with discomfort, I reinforce an identity built on courage and discipline. Over time, what once felt unbearable becomes familiar. Avoiding discomfort creates fragility. When the environment no longer adapts to my comfort, I struggle. Life does not remain gentle. Challenges are inevitable. Training through discomfort prepares me for unpredictability. It strengthens my ability to adapt rather than react. The more I voluntarily expose myself to controlled discomfort, the less power uncontrolled discomfort has over me. Discomfort teaches honesty. It removes the space for self-deception. When something is difficult, excuses are tempting. Discomfort reveals whether my commitment is real or conditional. It asks whether I value growth enough to endure inconvenience. This question, repeated over time, clarifies priorities. What I am willing to suffer for reveals what truly matters to me. There is a difference between unnecessary suffering and purposeful discomfort. Purposeful discomfort is chosen, structured, and aligned with growth. It is the strain of training, the tension of learning, the vulnerability of self-examination. This type of discomfort refines rather than damages. When guided by awareness, it becomes a powerful tool for transformation. Discomfort teaches presence. When the body is strained or the mind is challenged, I cannot escape into distraction without consequence. I must breathe, focus, and remain engaged. This presence sharpens awareness and deepens experience. Through discomfort, I reconnect with the moment rather than escaping from it. Over time, my relationship with discomfort changes. What once felt like a threat becomes a signal. It tells me I am progressing, adapting, and expanding. I no longer ask how to avoid discomfort, but how to use it. This shift transforms struggle into instruction and resistance into refinement. Discomfort does not arrive to stop me, it arrives to shape me. I do not chase motivation, I build consistency. Motivation is unreliable, unpredictable, and dependent on mood, energy, and circumstance. It rises when things feel easy and disappears when resistance appears. If I wait to feel motivated before acting, I surrender control of my progress to temporary emotions. Consistency, on the other hand, is built through commitment, not feeling. It does not ask whether I am inspired, it asks whether I am willing to show up. Progress belongs to those who act regardless of how they feel. Motivation is reactive. It responds to success, praise, excitement, or novelty. Consistency is proactive. It creates success through repetition. When I depend on motivation, my effort becomes sporadic. Some days I give everything, other days nothing. This inconsistency produces frustration, because results require accumulation. Consistency removes this instability. Even small actions, repeated daily, outweigh occasional bursts of intense effort. What I do regularly defines me more than what I do passionately once in a while. Building consistency requires accepting that most days will feel ordinary. There will be no surge of energy, no emotional high, no external encouragement. The work will still need to be done. Consistency is learning to respect the process when it feels boring, uncomfortable, or unrewarding. This respect separates those who progress from those who remain stuck waiting for the right moment. The right moment is created through action, not discovered through feeling. Consistency trains identity. When I act consistently, I no longer rely on self-talk to believe in myself. My actions become evidence. Each day I show up reinforces the identity of someone who follows through. This identity becomes stronger than temporary emotions. Motivation fluctuates, but identity stabilizes behavior. I act not because I feel like it, but because it is who I am. This shift removes internal negotiation and mental fatigue. Motivation often leads to overexertion. When inspired, I may push too hard, set unrealistic expectations, or burn out. Consistency values sustainability. It focuses on what can be maintained, not what can be forced. A pace that can be repeated is more powerful than intensity that collapses. Consistency respects limits while still demanding effort. It allows progress without self-destruction. Consistency also builds trust with myself. Each time I follow through, I prove that my word has weight. This self-trust becomes a source of quiet confidence. I no longer need to convince myself that I am capable. I know it because I have lived it repeatedly. Motivation cannot build this trust because it is external and fleeting. Consistency builds trust because it is internal and deliberate. Waiting for motivation places control outside of myself. It implies that I need something to happen before I can act. Consistency returns control inward. I decide the standard, and I meet it. This creates stability in uncertain environments. When conditions change, my behavior remains steady. This steadiness becomes an advantage. Others hesitate when motivation fades. I continue because my system does not depend on feeling. Consistency simplifies life. When actions are scheduled and habitual, there is less mental debate. I do not ask whether I should act, I know when and how. This reduces decision fatigue and emotional resistance. Over time, effort decreases because the behavior becomes automatic. What once required willpower becomes routine. Motivation is replaced by momentum. Momentum compounds. Each consistent action makes the next one easier. Progress builds upon itself quietly. The results may not be immediately visible, but they are accumulating. Motivation seeks immediate feedback. Consistency accepts delayed results. This patience allows long-term growth. Those who abandon the process because they do not feel motivated miss the power of compounding effort. Consistency also teaches resilience. On days when energy is low, showing up in a small way still matters. Consistency does not demand perfection. It demands presence. Even minimal effort maintains continuity. This prevents the cycle of guilt and restart that comes from all or nothing thinking. Consistency values continuity over intensity. Motivation is often tied to emotion, and emotion is unstable. Consistency is tied to values. When my actions are aligned with what matters, I do not need emotional excitement to move forward. Values remain even when feelings change. Acting from values creates meaning in repetition. The work is no longer dependent on how it feels, but on why it matters. Consistency reveals truth. When I commit to a process, excuses become visible. I see where I resist, where I avoid, where I rationalize. This awareness allows correction. Motivation hides these patterns because it carries me temporarily. Consistency exposes them and forces growth. Through repetition, weaknesses surface and can be addressed. Over time, consistency creates freedom. I am not constantly restarting, recalibrating, or searching for inspiration. I move forward steadily. Skills improve, confidence grows, and opportunities expand. Others may call it discipline, but it feels like alignment. I am no longer fighting myself. My actions and intentions are in agreement. Motivation is loud but short-lived. Consistency is quiet and enduring. It does not seek recognition. It does not announce itself. It simply continues. This quiet persistence outlasts excitement and survives difficulty. When results finally appear, they seem sudden to others, but they are the product of accumulated consistency. By choosing consistency, I accept that progress is not dramatic. It is repetitive, sometimes dull, and often uncomfortable. Yet within that repetition, transformation occurs. Each day of consistency reinforces the next. Each action builds stability. I do not need to feel motivated to move forward. Movement itself creates momentum, clarity, and strength. I do not chase motivation. I build consistency. I control what I can: my breath, my focus, my effort. Everything else exists beyond my authority, and resisting that truth only creates frustration. Life is unpredictable, people are uncontrollable, outcomes are uncertain, and circumstances change without permission. When I try to dominate what I cannot control, I lose energy and clarity. When I return my attention to what is within my control, I regain stability. Control does not mean power over the world, it means mastery over my response to it. My breath is the first anchor. It is always present, always available, and always honest. When the mind becomes restless or overwhelmed, the breath reflects it immediately. Shallow breathing reveals tension. Rushed breathing reveals anxiety. Held breath reveals resistance. By controlling my breath, I influence my nervous system. Slow, deliberate breathing creates space between stimulus and reaction. In that space, choice becomes possible. The breath grounds me in the present moment, where action can actually occur. Breath teaches patience. I cannot force it without consequence. If I rush it, I create tension. If I ignore it, it becomes shallow and erratic. When I guide it calmly, the body responds with balance. This relationship mirrors life. Force creates resistance. Awareness creates alignment. Each controlled breath reminds me that calm is not the absence of pressure, but the ability to remain steady within it. When emotions surge, the breath becomes my first tool. I may not control what I feel, but I can control how deeply I breathe into it. This prevents emotion from turning into impulse. Through breath, I learn to stay present with discomfort rather than escaping it. Presence strengthens resilience. It allows clarity to emerge where panic once lived. I control my focus, and focus determines direction. Whatever I repeatedly give attention to grows in influence. If I focus on obstacles, they multiply. If I focus on effort, progress appears. Focus is limited, and where I place it matters. Distraction weakens action. Clarity strengthens it. When I allow my attention to scatter, my energy follows. When I focus deliberately, my actions become precise. Focus requires discipline because the world constantly competes for attention. Noise, comparison, and stimulation pull the mind outward. Controlling focus means choosing what deserves attention and what does not. This choice shapes perception. Two people can experience the same situation and see completely different realities based on where their focus rests. One sees limitation, the other sees opportunity. Focus defines interpretation. When focus is controlled, effort becomes efficient. I am no longer reacting to every thought or external trigger. I act with intention. I complete tasks fully instead of partially. This depth replaces urgency. Rushed effort feels productive, but often lacks substance. Focused effort compounds because it builds skill and understanding, not just activity. Focus also reveals truth. When I concentrate on my actions rather than my excuses, patterns become visible. I see where I hesitate, where I procrastinate, where I avoid discomfort. This awareness is uncomfortable, but it is necessary. Without focus, avoidance hides behind business. With focus, self-deception becomes harder to maintain. I control my effort, even when results are uncertain. Effort is the bridge between intention and outcome. I cannot guarantee success, but I can guarantee participation. Effort is the most honest expression of commitment. It does not require confidence, motivation, or certainty. It only requires willingness. Each day I choose how much effort I give, regardless of conditions. Effort builds identity. Repeated effort shapes who I become. When I consistently give honest effort, I become reliable to myself. This reliability builds confidence that is not dependent on outcome. I trust myself because I show up. Effort transforms potential into capability. Without it, potential remains theoretical. Effort also builds tolerance for difficulty. When effort is avoided, discomfort feels overwhelming. When effort is practiced, discomfort becomes manageable. The body adapts, the mind adapts, and resistance loses its grip. Effort teaches me that difficulty is survivable. This knowledge reduces fear and increases courage. Controlling effort means accepting that some days will feel heavy. Energy fluctuates. Motivation fades. External circumstances interfere. Effort does not require ideal conditions. It requires presence. Even reduced effort maintains continuity. This continuity prevents regression. Progress is not erased by low days when effort remains consistent. When I focus on breath, focus, and effort, external chaos loses influence. I stop measuring my stability by outcomes and start measuring it by alignment. This internal alignment creates composure. Composure allows better decisions. Better decisions improve outcomes indirectly, without obsession. This approach also removes unnecessary suffering. Much stress comes from resisting reality. When I accept what I cannot control, tension dissolves. Energy returns to where it belongs. Instead of worrying about results, I refine process. Instead of fearing judgment, I commit to effort. Instead of reacting to pressure, I return to breath. Breath keeps me grounded. Focus keeps me directed. Effort keeps me moving. Together, they form a stable foundation in an unstable world. I do not need control over everything to live effectively. I need control over myself. This self-control is not rigid or aggressive. It is calm and deliberate. It allows flexibility without collapse. When challenges arise, I return to these three. I breathe to stabilize, focus to clarify, and apply effort to move forward. This sequence prevents overwhelm. It breaks large problems into manageable actions. Each breath steadies the body. Each focused moment sharpens the mind. Each effortful action creates momentum. Over time, this practice builds inner strength. I no longer feel powerless in uncertainty. I no longer wait for conditions to improve before acting. I operate from what is available now. Breath is available. Focus is available. Effort is available. These are always mine to command, regardless of circumstance, status, or outcome. I choose progress over perfection every single day. Perfection is an illusion that promises safety but delivers paralysis. It convinces the mind that action must wait until conditions are ideal, skills are complete, and confidence is absolute. Progress rejects this delay. It accepts imperfection as part of movement. When I choose progress, I allow myself to begin before I feel ready and continue even when results are incomplete. This choice creates momentum where perfection creates hesitation. Perfection focuses on outcome, image, and approval. Progress focuses on process, effort, and direction. When perfection dominates, fear increases. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of not being enough. These fears disguise themselves as high standards, but their true effect is avoidance. Progress does not eliminate standards. It applies them incrementally. It allows improvement to unfold through action, rather than waiting for flawless execution. Progress requires humility. It accepts that mistakes are inevitable and valuable. Each error provides information that refinement cannot happen without. Perfection resists error because it equates mistakes with inadequacy. Progress understands that mistakes are evidence of engagement. Without mistakes, there is no feedback, and without feedback, there is no growth. Choosing progress means choosing to learn in public and private without shame. Progress also requires patience. Results appear gradually, often invisibly. Perfection demands immediate proof of competence. When that proof is absent, discouragement follows. Progress values consistency over speed. It recognizes that small improvements compound over time. 1% better each day creates transformation that perfectionism never reaches because it never begins. Perfection creates rigidity. When conditions deviate from expectation, momentum collapses. Progress creates adaptability. When obstacles arise, adjustment follows rather than abandonment. Progress does not ask whether conditions are ideal, it asks what can be done now. This adaptability builds resilience. Each adjustment strengthens problem-solving ability and reduces fear of uncertainty. Progress over perfection also protects mental energy. Perfectionism consumes attention through overthinking, comparison, and self-criticism. Progress redirects energy into action. Instead of replaying mistakes, it corrects them. Instead of imagining failure, it tests solutions. This shift reduces inner conflict and increases clarity. Action simplifies what thought complicates. Choosing progress changes the relationship with time. Perfection delays until the future, waiting for readiness that never arrives. Progress acts in the present. The present is the only place where effort has impact. Each small action anchors me in now rather than in imagined outcomes. This presence strengthens engagement and reduces anxiety. Progress builds confidence through evidence. Confidence is not created by flawless performance, but by repeated proof of persistence. Each time I move forward despite imperfection, I reinforce trust in my ability to adapt. This trust becomes more stable than confidence based on success alone, because it survives difficulty. Perfection often leads to abandonment. When standards are impossible, disappointment becomes inevitable. Progress sets realistic expectations that allow continuity. Even on low-energy days, progress can occur in small forms. This prevents the cycle of intense effort followed by collapse. Sustainability replaces intensity. Progress also encourages honesty. When perfection is the goal, image matters more than truth. Weakness is hidden, struggles are denied, and growth is slowed. Progress values transparency. It acknowledges where improvement is needed without self-judgment. This honesty accelerates learning because energy is not wasted on pretending. Progress creates momentum. Each completed action makes the next one easier. Momentum reduces resistance. Over time, what once felt difficult becomes familiar. Skills sharpen, confidence grows, and clarity increases. Perfection interrupts this momentum by stopping movement until everything aligns. Progress allows alignment to develop through movement. Progress over perfection also deepens discipline. Discipline thrives on repetition, not flawlessness. Showing up consistently matters more than performing perfectly once. Each day of progress reinforces habit. Habits shape identity. Identity stabilizes behavior. This chain does not require perfection. It requires participation. Progress allows for self-compassion without self-indulgence. It acknowledges effort while maintaining direction. Perfection often disguises self-criticism as ambition. Progress balances ambition with realism. It challenges without crushing. This balance sustains long-term commitment. Progress also expands opportunity. Action creates exposure. Exposure creates feedback. Feedback creates improvement. Perfection waits for certainty before acting, but certainty is created through experience. By choosing progress, I enter environments where learning accelerates. I gain information that thought alone cannot provide. Progress reshapes failure. Failure becomes data rather than identity. Each attempt reveals what works and what does not. This perspective removes fear. When failure is no longer catastrophic, experimentation increases. Experimentation accelerates growth. Perfection avoids failure and therefore avoids discovery. Progress is aligned with reality. Reality is imperfect, unpredictable, and constantly changing. Progress flows with this reality rather than resisting it. Perfection attempts to control what cannot be controlled. Progress adapts and continues. Choosing progress daily creates consistency. Consistency compounds. Over time, the distance between where I started and where I stand becomes undeniable. This transformation does not arrive through flawless execution, but through sustained effort. Progress allows me to honor where I am while moving toward where I want to be. Perfection promises a final arrival. Progress understands there is no final state, only refinement. This understanding removes pressure and replaces it with purpose. Each day becomes an opportunity to improve rather than a test to pass. I move forward without waiting for ideal conditions, perfect confidence, or guaranteed success. I choose progress over perfection every single day.